Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here, going over fantasy football news and notes and breaking down the Packers rushing attack. So look, last year, AJ Dillon outcarried Aaron Jones. They both were excellent fantasy performers. Dillon had more rushing touchdowns, used a little more at the goal line. Aaron Jones, of course, uses a receiver as well. They both put up strong fantasy campaigns. But for what fantasy managers paid in drafts for Aaron Jones last year, they definitely got shortchanged because Aaron Jones did not have a ceiling season, as has been the case in a couple of years. AJ Dillon definitely exceeded expectations with his strong season and strong performance. Now, what will happen this year? So, first of all, they're splitting reps in practice. So, when you hear that, don't be surprised. That's the way it's going to be. However, I have to paint a narrative here. So understand, if you don't buy the narrative, I get that. But we often have to paint the narrative to make our fantasy analysis set us up for our drafts. So follow me on this. And if you like this idea, you might ride with it. If you don't, then go with what you feel is best. So Aaron Jones, right now in the current state of the Packers, outside of the quarterback, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, I believe Aaron Jones is the best skill position player they have. I believe his ability as a runner and a receiver is dynamic. I believe right now the receiver, Sammy Watkins, has been around a while, but he's unreliable to be on the field. Christian Watson's been hurt. They're not sure what they have. Romeo Doubs is having an impressive camp. But again, we may get some inconsistencies from the fourth round draft pick. So we're not quite sure what we all have here. Allen Lazard is the number one. Excellent blocker. But if he sees number one coverage, if he's lined up as an X receiver, how will he do in shedding off top corners consistently? So there's some reservations here. Aaron Jones can be used as a running back, as he will. He also could be used as an excellent receiver out of the backfield. However, they can split him up, not just in the slot, but they can actually split him up out wide in the formation. And it was a very small sample size. There were 8 games that Davante Adams didn't play. And in those games, Aaron Jones, he was up 8 PPR points per game. He was deployed much heavier. And so there's a little bit of history here to show that Aaron Jones will be used as a primary weapon now that Davante Adams is with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I believe Aaron Jones is going to continue to get out carried by AJ Dillon, but I think this is a year we could see Aaron Jones used the way maybe Austin Eckler is, getting a ton of receptions, as he has in a couple of years in the past. We could see him in that type of role, Alvin Kamara role. We don't always think of Aaron Jones that way because he hasn't ever been used as optimally as he can. But we've seen him run all kinds of routes to be successful. So that is the narrative I'm painting. Aaron Jones, I have him as my RB8. And I think the fantasy community is buying into this as well because he's actually in the last 3 days per Fantasy Mojo ADP to take high stakes drafts. And over the last 3 days, Aaron Jones is the RB10. So you're getting him at the turn or early second round. A couple drafts will creep into that mid-second round, but I will aggressively draft him anywhere from the very, very latter end of the 12-team league, end of the first round, but I definitely prefer to get him in the second round. AJ Dillon is still a strong fantasy play. Here's the one concern I have. How our defense is going to approach the Packers. So, look, they definitely fear Aaron Rodgers. They know that he is an elite quarterback. However, when he had Davante Adams, that was one thing because Davante Adams required specific, heavy attention to not even stop him because you couldn't stop him, but to slow him down. So now, will defenses approach them differently and say, you know what, we're not going to overcommit to stop the pass. We're going to let these receivers beat us. We're going to try to put more bodies in the box, bring more pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Remember, David Bakhtiari is still not healthy. Elton Jenkins, the other lineman, he played tackle last year. He's been in the guard at points in the past. He still isn't quite right. And they lost their center to the Bears in free agency. So this line is in flux right now. It's always been a strength of the Packers. If defenses come in to say, look, we're going to put more bodies up front, we're going to both try to cram the running lanes to stop A.J. Dillon and even Aaron Jones to a degree, and also use that to pressure Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is, like all other quarterbacks, susceptible to pressure, and he doesn't have Marquez Valdes-Scantling as that downfield target when he buys time. They'll try to fix it, but they don't really have a clear, in my mind, replacement for that. So I think defenses could have some success against the Packers. Also understand the Packers have an excellent defense this year, and so So they may be playing more lower scoring games than we expect. AJ Dillon is being drafted as the RB22. I have him a little lower at RB27. It's not that I don't buy into AJ Dillon. He's an excellent player, but I think defenses can frame them a lot differently this year. And I think they can also do that around the goal line area because the passing game was always lethal with Adams in the red zone. So even when the ball got near the goal line, defenses didn't always go to their heaviest personnel because they had to be very concerned about Rodgers throwing. So again, Dillon's going to have a great season, but I think that the ADP of RB22, putting him in firmly as an RB2, I think that might just be very slightly overranking him. If he falls a little bit, I'm good with that. And again, Aaron Jones, because of his passing role, that's what it is. Because if teams stack, Aaron Jones can get lighter secondaries, especially if he's lined up or split out. So I love that. So that's my take on the Packers running in this year. Definitely buying Aaron Jones, and just at his price, AJ Dillon's a little bit expensive for me right now. Let's go over to the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin has practiced for the second straight day, just blowing some people's minds up in that late season ACL and later surgery he had on him. So yes, he's practiced a couple straight practices. Look, head coach Todd Bowles has said that he is still feels that Godwin has a long way to go. And maybe that's true. But what we have to understand is this. I love Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is very reliant upon his high-end agility. That's why I was in on him the year he broke out, because I knew that that lateral agility he had would play very well into being a great slot receiver. And I just felt like he had all the tools, the measurables were all there. And anyway, that's the one thing I'm worried about from this ACL if he's coming back quickly, is he going to be able to have that same precision and explosion out of those cuts that made him lethal in the shortest areas of the field? Now, that said, right now, it looks like there's a great chance he'll be on the field for week one. If he's practicing now and it's early August, well, I mean, you got to think he's going to be on the field, and if not, missing a game or two at most. At this point, you have to think that unless there are setbacks in practice. Now, his ADP is wide receiver 29, so that bakes in a lot, because if Chris Godwin was going fine on his knee with Tom Brady at quarterback, Godwin would be going in the top 15 receivers without a problem, and some people might even target him a little bit more aggressively than that. Now, at wide receiver 29, I actually in my rankings have him as wide receiver 27, but when I'm on the clock, I'm going to really struggle to push the button on Godwin because I just have questions right now. And those questions make me think, would I rather have a healthy player? I know the discounts there on Godwin, but in this early part of the draft, which is in the third round, I don't know that I want to take that gamble at that point of the draft. Fifth round and beyond is a different level of gamble, but every player can get hurt. But I want a player maybe who's healthy right now. So again, my ranking of wide receiver 27, when I'm on the clock, it depends what I usually am going maybe over to running back in that situation. But if I need a receiver, I like other options on the board. So I'm probably going to fade Chris Godwin because of that uncertainty, but I can't blame you if you're in on him because it is a discount. Mike Evans. So fortunately, the hamstring injury he suffered, short-term injury. He's expected back very soon. Whew, sigh of relief. Excellent news for Mike Evans. Now, here's the thing. I was very high on Mike Evans up till a couple of weeks ago when Julio Jones, I get it. Julio Jones is 33 years old. He's coming off 2 injury plague seasons. I understand. Here's what I want you to think about. The Buccaneers want to win the Super Bowl. Every team does. I get it, but they have a plan. Tom Brady is instrumental in this. Right now, they tested Julio out. He is healthy. He was making plays in practice already. The Buccaneers are not stupid. They are going to use him judiciously. They're not going to give him many training camp reps. Tom Brady will work on specific plays with him. And what they will do is they will find a way to function together. I expect his snaps to be limited to somewhere around 30 a game. And if they're winning big, they'll pull him off the field. They'll be very managed. But here's what I want to point about Mike Evans. So Mike Evans is an outstanding receiver in so many different ways, but he's been a touchdown machine in the last 2 years. He's only catching about 70 balls a season, barely cracking 1,000 yards, but it's that 13 and 14 touchdowns. Julio Jones puts a dent in that, in my opinion. Here's why. Look, Mike Evans, you can't argue, one of the greatest red zone receivers of our time. When Julio Jones was with Atlanta, we know he was always criticized for not scoring touchdowns. But here's the thing. Julio was bracketed, which is fine. He could have beaten it, but Matt Ryan was smart. He's like, you know what? This dude's open over here. I'm going to throw it to the open guy, or the guy single covered with, who has a step. So Matt Ryan just defaulted off and went to the next guy. He had no problem doing that. And Julio is a class act and never complained about it, to my knowledge. And so he didn't get force-fed those targets. If Mike Evans is going to get the primary coverage in the red zone, and Julio Jones is going to have some far, far lesser defender, I mean, he's not being bracketed anymore, Tom Brady's going to see that he's there. Because honestly, Mike Evans, as great as he is, and Julio Jones is 33. If Julio Jones is healthy, Julio Jones is a better player. He's a small room Hall of Fame type guy, right? And so if he's healthy, he's getting some red zone targets. Not all of them. Mike Evans will get his, but that 14 touchdowns going on to 9, that 9 to 14 is a huge hit for wide receiver 8 by ADP. Now, I still am high on Mike Evans. I have him as wide receiver 10 because I still think that, with Julio being limited on snaps and Godwin maybe not seeing the amount of targets. So I think that maybe we'll just end up seeing Mike Evans with a different target share, maybe elevated a bit. And so I do like it, but as ADP, I'm not going to go to wide receiver 8 for him. I like T. Higgins more. And with Joe Burrow, concentrated offense, that's where I kind of like to hitch my wagon there. Brandon Ayuk is having a great camp so far for the 49ers. Now, last year, he got in the doghouse with Kyle Shanahan. That didn't work out. He was like really on the field, off the field, but not part of the game plan for like 6 or 7 weeks. And then he had a really slow start. He came on. He had a bunch of games with 85 or more yards down the stretch. He definitely was an outstanding player. But here's the thing. Brandon Ayuk is a very good downfield receiver. He can win these one-on-one battles. But Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the guy that was ever going to unlock him consistently because Jimmy was throwing the ball short, which benefited Deebo Samuel and George Kittle more than Ayuk. Now, Ayuk still put up numbers. Now we get Trey Lance. So I know here's a little narrative. Ayuk was really working heavily with Lance in the offseason, trying to build this rapport. But the one thing we know about Trey Lance, he may be green in terms of polish as a quarterback. We know he can run. We know he can freeze defenders. But he has a great downfield arm. And Brandon Ayuk is that guy. And in practice, they're working on this. They have him up against the corners, and they're throwing these one-on-one passes. And the beat writers are saying Ayuk is coming down with a great number of them. So he is really shining. And with this great camp, look, he's not going to be in every week ironclad play because there are weeks the 49ers are going to run. We know that. We know that the other receivers, Deebo is still going to be heavily involved, a superstar. George Kittle's a superstar. So Ayuk's going to be a little more volatile, but he's going at wide receiver 42. I have him at wide receiver 34, and I get it, run-heavy offense. They're still going to throw, and those downfield plays are going to be there. And we've already seen that Ayuk can get it done on limited targets. So at his ADP, absolutely love him. All right, we'll fire through these last few. J.K. Dobbins, Monday evaluation to see if he can get activated from the PUP list. He really wants to play. The team was being patient with him. We'll see what happens there. Basically, it's your risk tolerance. He's more than a year removed. If he's cleared to practice, my assumption is he's fine. He's ADP, RB21, again, per Fantasy Mojo, last 3 days, most fresh data you'll get. And I have him as my running back 22, so I'm just behind the field a bit. Not aggressively targeting him. If I need a running back, not necessarily averse to taking him. Kareem Hunt, that little hold in is kind of over a couple of days. I think you realize, oh my gosh, the team's going to find me. They're going to do what the CBA allows them to do. I'll owe them more than my salary if I sit out for this year. So Kareem Hunt, back to the drills. So he is drafted as the RB29. On my board, he's the RB29. So I will draft him at value if I need a running back in that area. There is a chance they trade him. I'm not saying this is not a rumor. I'm just saying this is possible that they have Dearness Johnson. If they think Hunt's disgruntled, if they can get something of any value in return, maybe they trade him. If they do, if he gets in a situation where he's the lead guy, he could blow that ADP away. So that's the double benefit of Hunt. He should earn his ADP in his current role, but if he gets moved, he could then blow it away. That makes him the safe pick with unknown upside. Of course, if Nick Chubb misses time, Hunt has more upside, but I think Dearness Johnson will be in that mix as well. So I think it won't be like he'll be just the guy only. Kadarius Toney, limited with the knee at camp. That gets me nervous. It's probably a minor injury, but we know last year he struggled with injuries, missed a lot of time, had the big game against Dallas. He had another decent game, but he had a lot of on and off. And they're installing a new offense in Brian Dable. Toney should be a centerpiece of this. His ability to get open quick is huge for what they want to do. But if he's not on the field, that chemistry of Daniel Jones needs to get there quickly. And I wonder if Brian Dable is going to have concerns. I've liked him as an upside receiver in draft. He is ADP as wide receiver 38. I have him very close at wide receiver 39. So again, kind of very close to what the market has on him. If I have shares of him, I'm not going out of my way to have a ton of shares, but I want some shares because what I saw last year and with Brian Dable coming in, if he's healthy and gets that rapport, he could crush ADP. He could be a wide receiver 2 at a high wide receiver 4 cost. The Texans backfield, you're going to hear reports that say Pierce is the guy. You're going to hear reports that say Mack is the guy. Their head coach isn't helping anybody, saying 6 guys are in the mix. This is the way I look at it. You're going to stake a claim to one of them, or you're going to avoid it altogether. First of all, per Warren Sharp, their schedule against the run, last year, it was very difficult. This year, it's more middle of the pack. So it's definitely an easier run schedule than they had. Now, ADP, I have this completely flipped. ADP is Dameon Pierce, running back 40, Marlon Mack, running back 55. I'm just polar opposite. I have Mack as 41, and I have Pierce as 53. So the market thinks Pierce is the guy. I think Mack is the guy. Pierce was not that impressive in his testing. His speed and explosiveness were okay. They were nothing special. 4th-round draft pick. They didn't really go out of their way to get him in terms of drafting him high. They really wanted him. They got him earlier. So fine enough. But as a player they coveted, they got him. But Marlon Mack says he's finally feeling back to what he was before his Achilles injury. And he had 4.4 and a 4.7 yards per carry in 2 straight years with the Colts before hurting his Achilles. He put up over 1,000 yards, no great shakes, but it was 1,000 yards. And he wasn't heavily used as a receiver, but he showed greater receiving ability. He knows how to pass block. He is a professional runner, and I think that gives him an edge with Lovie Smith. My opinion, Mack should be able to hold off Pierce for the job, and if he plays well, he'll keep it. Stake your claim wherever you're going to go. But again, if you want, the value is Mack because he's the cheaper piece. Pierce, you're paying RB40. You're paying as if he is going to be a big part of that backfield. So again, Mack, you're getting as like a running back 5. But if he gets that job, he could be a low end 2 or a high end 3 for you. Now, KJ Osborne leads the battle in the number 3 receiver in Minnesota. Of course, we knew that, but his ADP is wide receiver 69. I'm close, wide receiver 67 for me. But here's the thing. KJ Osborne last year, when he was used well in certain games, he did well. And there were games they went away from him. Mike Zimmer was the coach. Look, if Adam Thielen misses time, Osborne potentially steps into a role across from Justin Jefferson in a Kevin O'Connell Ram-style offense. Yes, sell me on some KJ Osborne because if he gets time, he could blow away that ADP. And the last player, this is a quick one, Byron Pringle of the Bears, quad injury, unspecified return date. He's going as the wide receiver 99. Now, assuming this quad injury isn't something that's going to be, months, I have him as wide receiver 82. So, yeah, not high. But if you're drafting in a deep league where that many receivers are drafted, look, Byron Pringle, somebody's going to have to catch the ball in Chicago along with Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. They're going to trail a lot. Byron Pringle, late draft pick, absolutely sign me up. If not, if he doesn't work out, you cut him. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.